it's a great day. My name is Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the #1 business development and revenue-focused late-night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to inspire, our mission is to empower, and our mission is to provide you, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Melissa Thompson. She's in the building. Yeah, she'll be discussing intentional living with time spelling, whatever that means. We'll figure that out. What's going on, Melissa? How are you?
Hi, Shay. Thanks for having me. I am well. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy to have you here as well. The audience is looking. They're probably reading your bio. They're likely Googling you now. We'll get into your backstory. But first, what is time spelling? I mean, we want intentional living. I'll get into that. But the audience wants to know, what in the LL Cool J is time spelling? So can you define it, what it is, and why it's so important?
Yeah, so time spelling is really holistic time management. So our words have power, and we're taught that regardless of what you believe in, that what you speak, you'll see, right? And so a lot of times the first thing we hear is, I don't have enough time. Well, why don't you have enough time? Because you're not intentional about how you're spending your time, which is the only resource that you cannot replenish. And so the idea behind time spelling is that we teach you how to understand where your time is being spent. So then you can reverse the bad spells that you have on your time and live the life that you want to live and control it and spend your time wisely.
Well, I'm curious. I might be the only person here. This is probably just a Shay Brown question. But what? Now, I know this is crazy. We'll get into intentional living, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm curious. We got all these apps on our phone, myself included. Why are we still struggling with, doing the things that are intentional or doing the things that have priorities when we've got Instagram to get me all motivated anytime I want? I've got apps. I've got ChatGPT to tell me any wonderful thing I want to hear. Yet I'm back to the basics. Why do you think that's the case? What's your view of the world for people like Shay Brown, who's like, I'm still struggling with time management?
Well, because you just think about all the things that you listed consume most people's days, right? And so right there, I don't have enough time, even if it's just because you get caught up in scrolling on Instagram for an hour because you're looking for, what we're going to have for dinner tonight. What should I do to be
I'm guilty.
fit to cram, to cram in, a little workout, because I'm supposed to work out every day, but I don't have time for that either. And don't say anything about my mental health. So I'm really relying on social media to feed me there. And so it's just a cycle. And then you find yourself kind of in a hole of where you don't know where to start. So you just like, yeah, I can put an app on my phone, but what do I put in the app? Like, that's really going to change the quality of my life. Because if you're living a life that's full of chaos, it makes sense to you until you look at the chaos and you throw out the stuff that just doesn't make sense to be there. But we get so used to doing it and we're so programmed to do it that we just think, I'm going to put in the app. It's going to make it better. It's not. It's just going to show you how much time you don't have for what you really value.
We're going to talk about intentional living, and the audience, they probably want you to know that probably a good part of the audience are dualpreneurs. They work a full-time job and they're a full-time entrepreneur, and they're probably thinking, Shay, let her know that I've got to take care of the husband, or I got to take care of the wife, or I'm in a relationship, or we have kids, or I'm a caregiver. And oh, by the way, Shay, let her know my kids have a schedule. Before she talk about, we got a lot of stuff going on. And by the way, I'm active in my community and I'm involved in a lot of stuff. So what is her view on the world, Shay? And I know it's an unfair question, but on intentional living, when I seem like I'm taking care of everyone else and I don't have time to take care of myself. I'm not sure if that's something you get into, but that's the reality of a number of folks who are watching right now. What would you say to that person that's listening now?
That is everything that I get into, because me being surrounded by that and not having enough time to deal with what I was going through led to me being on the other end of a gun to my head. And so for me, it's a mission. You got to take time to understand where you are. If you're not happy, why you're not happy, right? Because I have the husband. I've been married 15 years. I have 10 children. Now we have a grandkid. I've worked in the community. I do community organize. And so I understand completely about, I'm doing for everyone else. And that's why for me, time spelling is big, because if I would have had someone telling me, it's important that you take time to know where you are. What do you want? That being a wife is good, being a mom is great, but that's just not it. It's not enough. And you'll find yourself in a hole thinking, like, what am I doing? This is not where I saw myself being 20 years ago. And then you feel like you're living a life of fraud and you're depressed. And so it's just all about like, what do you really want? And a lot of times we feel selfish, especially as moms, when we sit down and think about, well, what do I want when my kid needs sneakers or my kid needs, tutoring, or if they need to go on this trip, or we should get this, it's everything but you.
And to that person, what do you say so they don't feel guilty? I mean, I was blessed to not blessed. I have to raise my sons, which is pretty cool, by the way. I now have a grandson as well, so I get that. It's 18 months old, and my daughter-in-law is expecting our
Aww.
first baby girl, a granddaughter. And what do you say to the person, or what words do you use, I should say, so you don't feel guilty when you try to take care of things you need to take care of to be intentional, but you feel like you're letting someone else down because you're always that person that's there for them. Again, this is not therapy, ladies and gentlemen, but you want to get to intentional living.
It is not.
Time spelling. However, there's some best practices that she does, and this could change your whole life. I know I laugh and I joke a lot, but you get this right, and your whole life was changed. I promise you. So anyway, so what do you say to the person that feels guilty? Is there affirmations or things you say so you don't feel like you're letting people down when you're not there?
So yeah. So affirmations, that does come into play, but the first thing we want to do is we want to do a time audit, because when you already feel guilty, no matter how many times you tell yourself, oh, it's okay to love you, you matter too, you're not hearing that, because right now all you're thinking about the black and white of what needs to be done on your to-do list. So when we take and we do an extensive time audit where we look at your week, your life for a week, and we're telling you every hour on the hour, I want to know what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and what value does it connect within your life. And we're going to look at this, and then you're going to send me this every day, and then we're going to look at, okay, realistically, don't feel guilty, because right here you have 2 hours of time that you could be giving to yourself, that you're giving to something that does not even line up with any of your core values or your family's mission for life. So why are you over here? And it could be something as simple as, yes, maybe volunteering for youth sports was your jam 5 years ago when your kids were under 13. They're not under 13 no more, but you feel like you owe it to this organization to stay in. Sometimes everything is for a season. We have to understand when our seasons are up. But a lot of times we want to roll, seasons into seasons, because we feel like it just makes the most sense, right? And we feel like we owe somebody more than we've already given. But in fact, anything we give is a blessing. Anything I give you, anything you give me is a blessing. It's a gift. It was never owed. And so in doing so, if you don't want to feel guilty, write down your values. If you don't know those, we're going to figure those out during the time audit too, because what a lot of moms I talk to in the course of life, and they forget like what's really important. Yes, being a family, that's a value. But that's not the value that makes them feel complete. Like going back to, what did you think of when you found out you were going to have a child and you were starting this family? And do those things still matter? Are they relevant? Because feelings change. We change. My husband has had probably 30 different wives in 15 years.
That's funny.
I mean, so you can look at it as exciting, or you can look at it as scary. But I mean, it's true. We change.
And speaking of that, this is probably a good time. Folks are like, Shay, I didn't read her bio. I know you said everybody Googled her and looked her up, but I'm listening to her while I'm cooking in the kitchen right now, okay? Or I'm riding it down the road. She's on the AirPods at the podcast. I don't know who this person is, but I like what I'm hearing. It's making sense. And for many people, it's going to make sense in your business as well. But take a moment, the question, what's your backstory? Like, who are you? And what was that defining moment that led you to being on this path you are now, which is all about intentional living and time with time spelling? And we'll get into, ladies and gentlemen, for those who are watching, I'm going to ask her later, give us 3 ways that you can live intentionally. Don't worry about that. But let's find out first, who is this person? So take it away, if you would. Who are you? What's your backstory?
So I would say if I had to pick one word that would sum me up, it would definitely be music, because I believe it's magical and it can heal just as well as it can tear down. So we do have to be intentional to what we're listening to. If you want a true love, you can't be listening to "I'm gonna bust your windows out your car" because it doesn't line up. Um, and then I'm 43. I'll be 44 soon. I don't mind sharing my age because I have done a lot in my 44 years. I was born in the backwoods of Virginia, graduating the class of 96 people. Um, went went to school for theater acting, then became a full-time pastor and a full-time broker in real estate and insurance, and did that for about a decade all together at the same time, while having a family, and traveled up and down the East Coast training sales teams, doing pastor and women leadership conferences with my husband. And now, I am here, and I'm really just focused on my focus on cut, because it's a couple of head coaches, but my focus is for moms, that, because moms crack, and we crack because we don't have time for ourselves and we don't make time for ourselves. And so that is who I am. My mark is to make sure that every mom knows that it's okay to crack, but what's not okay is to not get help, because we need help. And if we don't, it does lead to those things like, being suicidal. And I know a lot of moms that, attempted suicide. I'm one of those moms. And so for me, it's huge that we take time and we understand that 5 minutes is better than no minutes, and just prioritizing that. So that's who I am. Mom of 10, six of them I birthed. My husband, I met in the studio. He was a rapper looking for a singer, so weird thing, but here we are 20 years later. And we live in Houston, and we are just all about the family being well and the next generation set up to really live and have an equitable opportunity. And the way we make that happen too is with strong mental health and intentional living. So we're just not repeating cycles.
I love it. Um, Take a moment and talk about intentional living. You touched on it earlier. And if you had to give maybe three ideas, you gave so many already, so it might be a recap, but three ideas for the person that's listening that says, yeah, I want to live an intentional life. I'm interested in that, Shay. I'm no longer going to dibble and dabble. Okay, you're going to be all in. You're all in.
Mhm.
Okay, no more dibbling and dabbling. You're pushing all the cards on the table, and you're jumping in with both feet. Share maybe two or three things that someone could do right now that could put them on that path or keep them on. Well, I guess it's probably two type of folks. Some folks are on the path, and you can help
Mhm.
them do a little bit better. And others, well, the on track, off track, on track, off track. So first, talk to the group that's on track and off track. Maybe one or two things they can do to be more consistent. That's the question. How can they be more consistent in their intentional living? And then maybe come back
Mhm.
on the other side. It's a two-part question, ladies and gentlemen. She can handle it. And talk to the person that's like, I'm doing okay, but I need to do better. What's one little thing you can give me so I can just have more attention in my living?
Okay. So one of the things we do have is we do have a whole year-long time spell journal that you can get that walks you through planning everything. Like, it tells you, you sit down and you first decide, like, what do I want? What does my spouse want? What does my kids want? What does our future look like? And kind of just reverse engineering your life, right, together, and doing that collectively, because as a family it can get messy when everybody has their own vision and goals. So number one, even if you're not using that, come up with, get a notebook, just a plain notebook, and decide, what does each member of your intermediate family desire? Then what are core values that you all have that are your family's core values? And if you're single, just your core values. What matters to you? What things do you bounce your life off of, like your gauge? Because we all need something to say, this is my yes, like I'll do it if it's over here. And if it's over here, it's a heck no, not going to happen at all. And that's the first step, because when you don't know what your boundaries are, then that's when you find yourself just living everybody else's life. Like, for me, for years, I lived the life that everybody else wanted me to live for me. The type of wife I need to be, the type of mother I needed to be, the type of worker I needed to be. All these things were other people's vision for my life. And that's what drove me to depression, because as they were doing that, and as I was living these visions, I got smaller and smaller. And when you're so small, you wonder how your feelings are so big, right? Because they're just all over the place. And you feel like everybody knows you're this walking blob of darkness. And I didn't have those boundaries set to say, though, hey, Nah, I used to want to do that, but I don't want to do that anymore. And now that I'm here in this stage in my life, this is what's important to me. So that's the first step. You just really have to know what you want, because most of us do not know. We think we know, and most people I talk to, when we really sit down and look at it, they're like, yeah, nope, I don't want that anymore. And sometimes that hard truth might even be you don't want to be married anymore. That's a hard one, because most people will fight that one tooth and nail, because it's like it's a stamp. Everybody knew you did it. Let's not. But if it's not working, it's not working. If you're on track and you're trying to just make sure you're keeping on track, you got to do those weekly checkoffs. Just like if you're running a business, because we're talking to business owners here, you're doing audits, you're doing bank reconciliation. So you need to do emotional mental health reconciliations. How much self help time did you have in this week? What's the minimum amount of self love time do you need in a day for you to feel like you can actually grow, serve, and be what you need to be in your business for the community. Because if you're down, then serving the community kind of just goes out the back as well. So making sure you're doing that audit of how you're aligning your business up with your personal life, with whatever other goals you may have that are your guiding place, check it and make sure it's doing it. Because a lot of times what happens is we like to do our checklist mile marks. Like a birthday's coming up. Let me make sure I feel good about turning 44 and that I did something in 43 that I can say it wasn't a wasted year. The new year's coming up. Let me come up with these resolutions that I'm going to work hard on for the next 30 days, just in January, because once February comes, it's back to regular living. And so it's just really watching. Intentional living is not something that you do by chance. You have to do it moment by moment. Like you gotta look at what you're doing, because what happens is we just live in a blur. I mean, and you can act like if you really think about your day to day, ask yourself how many moments of today do you really remember and how many were on autopilot, including driving to the grocery store.
I love it. I love it. Driving to the grocery store. As you were saying that, it's two things that popped in my mind. Thanks for being so authentic, by the way. I like that, by the way. Just being open and
I,
authentic with us. Thank you.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, because we need that.
yeah. I mean, you're speaking fact, ladies and gentlemen. This is not no fluff. I was thinking at first. No, she's giving to you straight, and we can definitely use it. It leads us to a segment that we have here that Michelle I think is right on target. And the segment is called "Today is My January 1st." Now, for those folks who tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you know what we're about to do. You can go ahead and say those magical words right now. Today is my January 1st. Now, for those folks that are tuning in for the very first time, welcome to the Happy Optional Show family. We're glad to have you here. Today is my January 1st is our personal mantra. It represents a fresh start. Today is my January 1st represents a do-over. It means our past, no matter how dark and gloomy that past is, or how bright and sunny that past is, the past no longer equals our future. So my question for Michelle on the other side is really two parts. Number one, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? What do you hear? And number two, where's another moment there was a setback in your life or your business, and how did you bounce back from it, if any?
Yeah. So today is my January 1. What I would do is I would just live my life without fear or regard to what would be thought about every decision I make, because nobody cares more than you do. So my January 1 would just be full freedom to be creatively free to live, dream, explore, and chase the world for what it has to offer. As far as setbacks in my business, I can tell you one of the biggest setbacks we had is when we relocated to Houston 2 years ago. We sold everything, packed up just enough stuff in the U-Haul to say we're going to drive across the country, and drove 24 hours. Our family of six and a dog. And within 5 days of getting here, this time I had came over and I had a job offer, and I had decided, okay, I'm taking a break from being an entrepreneur. I just wanted to focus on self help. So I was tuning out everything and taking care of everybody else. And so I was like, let me get a job. That'll be easy, right? And no, 5 days after driving my family from North Carolina to Houston, Texas, I was laid off, and we were homeless, living in an Airbnb for 7 of our the 7 of the first months that we were here in Houston as a family. So that was very traumatic, because, like I said, we had sold everything, so we couldn't turn around and go back to North Carolina. And so at that point, all that self love and positive talk and getting to be good for yourself had to come in play, because you talk about, this is the week before Thanksgiving, and now you're in a new city. You still need somewhere to live. You got 4 little kids, and Christmas coming up, and you have no income coming in because you stopped doing everything else. And that was that was a huge challenge for us, but it actually brought us closer, because at that time we got to refine our family goals, because when resources are limited, you stop doing all the stuff that makes no sense, which is what we should do anyway before resources are limited. But now,
So true.
now going over here to do this, like, you're like, yeah, we're not doing that today. You know what, we're going to have movie time at home. Oh, you know what, we're going to write a book today. And so then you start getting your kids to think and be creative. And in that time, though, actually, our son, who's on the spectrum, our baby boy, was nonverbal until he was almost 6 years old. He actually got more words because we were so close, and our family bond became so stronger in that distress. Because we were living in a 2 bedroom, 6 of us, and a dog, and not a small dog. I'm talking about a 90 pound American bully in a 2 bedroom. We came from a house that was 3,000 square feet to 1,100 square feet apartment. So it was definitely trying. And then we also came from the suburbs of North Carolina to the inner city of Houston. We were down in Third Ward. So this was culture shock. We went from, we're like, maybe 10 of the black families in the school, to where, it's all black families in the school. And we're like, oh, okay, this is new. And my kids are even like, oh, we have black teachers, because we were out in North Carolina, so they're like, all the teachers are black. And I'm like, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's possible. So that was very trying. But it also made me go back into loving myself for an overdrive, and then opening back up to moms who were like, hey, when you're going to start working again, I need somebody to talk to. Because, I mean, we need support. And, when you're going through some of those really hard times, talking to your family is not the easiest, right? Because none of my family wanted me to move, first off. So they're all still over on the East Coast. So we're here by ourselves. So that was one thing in itself. So they're like, don't go. So to get here and then have this pitfall, it's like, oh, yeah, you can't call them, because it's going to be, we told you not to go. Come on back. Stop living on the edge. Stop being adventurous. Stop trying to do life. Just come live and die. And no, I don't want to do that. So it was a lot, but we made it, and we are here on the other side. And we're not in that 2 bedroom anymore.
Congratulations to you. I know that's amazing. Thanks for sharing. That's so fun. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing these days? You seem to be having a lot of fun, especially when you start talking about intentional living and time spelling. I can hear the energy in your voice. What do you enjoy most about it?
I love waking up and being able to spend time with my children and not having to choose a paycheck over them. I did that for, like I said, I have 6 kids. And so I have 2 generations of kids. So my older generation, my 3 that are basically adults, they're 23, 22, and 18. Like, I worked and devoted to so much time trying to provide a certain type of lifestyle that I didn't have as a kid, that I'm not sure that I gave them what they wanted from me, because I was trying to give them what I wanted as a kid. And that wasn't suffice. I had to learn from that too, right? Because we do that. And so now what I do is I talk to my children. My 3 little people I have now, they're 10, 8, and 6. And 2 of them are special needs, my boys. But they teach me so much every day. I mean, if you just listen to them, they teach you how to think, because they think the most pure, number one. I mean, they also remind me that the things that I think are important to them. So they don't care if they get a new pair of ones, or if they get a new pair of great value sneakers. They don't care. They just care that they got something new and that I took them to get it. And so now what I enjoy the most is just those moments, because we have so many. Like, we do intentional, like we have a whole family schedule. So we get up, We have family activity. My husband, he starts his morning at 3. I start mine at 5. So that way we get our stuff in, and then we get the kids out. We're doing pool, we're doing nature walks, we're doing all types of stuff just to really get them engaged and to teach them that life is for living and not for sitting inside a box.
Yeah, well said. Um, yeah, I like that. By the way, you also share what you do for fun. As we come down the home stretch, wish we had more time. Two-part question. Number one, what type of clients are you looking to work with these days, if any? And number two, how can folks best connect with you or stay in this conversation over and beyond the time that you and I have right now?
Yeah, for sure. We are definitely always looking to connect with families. Like I said, we're on Cut Enterprise, so we're here in Houston, Texas. So we have a host of coaches. Our thing is, it's not about being one successful business. We do believe in partnering with other business. So if you have services that you offer in Houston, please let us know because it's not about the one. It's about the whole community, and I believe in that so much. And so, but you also can find me on Instagram at Queen Her Fly. So think of a queen because I'm a black queen. Her HER because I've been her since my oldest was 1 years old. I'm going on 2, and she said her said we can't do that. And then fly because I am dope, but also because my transformation went through. I call it the butterfly stage, where I went through the pupa stage and I transformed because I had to do that introspect in my life. So, Queen Her Fly. So you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook, or if you look for On Cut Enterprise, you'll see me attached to that as well. And that'll talk about our other partners, like our youth football skills training camp that we have we that goes and works with young kings from 8 to 18 years old. So we are open. I do custom plans. I do VIP days with moms. My go-to is moms, but our group is the family. Like we look at the whole family because we do have my husband, of course, and then we have a single dad and a single mom that are head coaches that also pick up clients. So we kind of capture the whole circle.
Perfect. Well, let me say so much to you. Thank you so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. I've now been educated. I love time spelling and intentional living, and I've got to be more focused. So thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. We appreciate it. Can't wait to have you back again.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, and best of life to you.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you for tuning in because without you, the audience, well, there is no show. So we appreciate you. Every time you show up, we appreciate it. Every time you hit the like button, that's cool. But more importantly, hit the share button. Like hit that button if you can, if you're watching on one of the social media platforms, and pay it forward to another community so they can live intentionally as well. With that being said, I never get tired of reminding you every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that you, as you're watching right now, you're a super amazing, incredible human being. You've got a big heart. You're doing some wonderful things in the world. And no matter what's going on in your life right now, that today, in fact, is your January 1st. And because of just that one reason, I believe your best is still yet to come. They ain't seen it yet. Your best is yet to come. Your best is yet to come. My name is Shay Brown. I'm out. We'll see you next time. Peace. Thanks a lot. Salam, Michelle. Bye-bye.